Thanks for joining. This is a webinar about the keys to developer marketing. I'm Sid, I'm the CEO of GitLab, and I'm joined by the people from CloudForecast. Tony, can you introduce yourself and then hand it over to the other team members?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Tony, as mentioned from Sid. I'm from CloudForecast, and we help companies monitor and optimize their AWS spend through a daily email report. And then, Francois, you want to go ahead?
Hi, I'm Francois. We've been working on CloudForecast for about 3 years now. I'm one of the technical co-founder with Casey.
Yeah, and I'm Casey. I think we forgot to mention where we're based out of. So Tony's in Chicago, Francois is in San Francisco, I'm in Oakland. So two of us are in the Bay Area. Like Francois said, I'm one of the technical co-founders as well.
Cool. Tony, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So really appreciate the time and kind of giving us the opportunity to pick your brains a little bit. You know, we are in the B2B dev tool space, so we have a lot of questions. You know, we really respect what GitLab is doing and how have you guys grown the last few years. So we have some just general questions with developer marketing and how you guys approach it and how you guys see it. So to kind of get up and running, you know, for us, what prompted this call is we read an article about you guys getting your first 100 customers. So, and a lot of that is a huge milestone for companies. So for GitLab and you guys getting your first 100 customers, what was it like at GitLab? You know, was it a celebratory feeling or was it like, oh, okay, back to work now? And kind of like, how did you guys get to that point?
Thanks. I don't think we're celebrating customers. We're not keeping I wouldn't even know exactly how many customers we have right now, because it's all first, when you just start a company, it's all about the cash, and then later it's all about the recurring revenue, or in our case, the increase in recurring revenue. So that's the metric we watch, that's the metric we celebrate. And as for the first 100 customers, I think I expected them to come from GitLab.com, which I started. But it turned out that people like to self-host GitLab. So the customers came from organizations already running GitLab and then wanting support or more features. And they came to us. And it was like counterintuitive. Like I was trying to make GitLab.com work. And all the time I was getting emails, but hey, can you build this feature for us? Even though I wasn't very good at programming in general, and especially I wasn't very familiar with GitLab yet. I just started with it myself as well. For you, it's quite interesting that I've been thinking, like, would an open source and self-managed model work for you, where people run their own installation? And I think you'd be surprised as how many big companies, Fortune 100 companies, want tools like that you're making, but don't want to give anybody else access to their public cloud accounts, because I assume you have to put your credentials in your tool, and there's a lot of companies where you just can't do that. So there might be an option of being the first one that they can run themselves.
Is that a trend that you noticed? Like bigger companies tend to use GitLab on-prem, and smaller companies tend to use your services?
Exactly.
Interesting.
Gotcha. I can see that use case, especially we have been getting inquiries, especially with GovCloud and kind of a little bit more sensitive data. So I wonder, you know, getting that access is not possible, whereas being on-prem might be a better solution for them. Great. Kind of just moving on, you know, what are some common early mistakes that you see software service companies make with marketing? You know, which one did you personally fall for? Are there any specific things you can think of with developer marketing that you see that works really well?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to trust yourself that you understand your audience. For example, I post a lot on Hacker News, and I thought of that as a bit of my hobby, but I'm seeing like the huge effect it has on people being fans of the company and spreading the word. I think not measuring is a pitfall we did. Like if you do marketing actions, you want to make sure you measure what the effect is.
Mm-hmm.
Then it is, how do you measure like your qualification criteria? What's a marketing qualified lead? What is a sales accepted opportunity? Having those criteria specific and always fulfilled when you accept leads, otherwise your counts are off. And then focusing just on count. If you're just focusing on the number of leads, you'll get many small opportunities. So it's important to mix in like, okay, not just a number, but how much pipeline did they generate? And then pipeline being like, what's the size of the opportunity? Where do you get leads? Do you get, suppose that for us, like bigger companies tend to have more seats, upgrade to a higher tier more easily. So then make sure you direct your marketing efforts there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those are some of the important lessons we learned.
Gotcha. With kind of what you guys do with developer marketing, are there certain themes that you're seeing that really resonates with developers, specifically maybe with content marketing or the ebook that that's right on homepage? What are things that you guys are focusing on that resonates with the community really well?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Hacker News, so some of that is going to be a bit biased towards that. But if you read an article there, you want to learn something. So as you're building your product, you're continually learning about things, and you have things that are like interesting. You tell your co-founders like, hey, this is interesting. I did this, and this was the effect. So I think telling those stories in public is something that's an underserved market. It's mostly done by hobbyists that have done something interesting. I think many companies want to present a company pitch or some stuff like that, but for developers, telling about a hard technical problem that you solved or something that totally didn't work as you intended tends to be really interesting because it's very relatable, and you think that you it seems like you feel like you benefited from someone else making the mistake instead of having to make it yourself. That's kind of a gift that just keeps on giving.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that always, so try to keep it like stuff you talk about with like developer friends when you grab a beer together. Okay, that stuff you should put into a blog post.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Kind of going back to GitLab and the measurement, for you guys in your early days, what did you guys measure and how did you guys measure what was successful or not? Especially, maybe your inbound traffic was very low and your sign up was really low. It's kind of hard to determine statistical significance, especially with the data being so low. So how did you guys determine what was working or what was really not?
Yeah, you kind of follow the revenue. If you have more revenue, then apparently it's working. And you try different things. We tried to sell support. Nobody wanted that. We tried donations. We got it from $7 to $1,000 a month. We tried paid development, but it was super hard to coordinate. And then we tried licensed software. And that went bananas compared to the rest. And then our lowest tier is like way cheaper than anything out there. So we tried a higher tier and then people bought that. We had another tier that is even higher.
How quickly did you move from one idea to the other?
In the beginning, it went pretty fast. I think like donations we tried for 3 months, paid development, something like that.
Got it. Okay.
Maybe even 2 months. And what they advise at Y Combinator, an incubator program we went through, is that you just set a metric and you just try to improve it. So every 2 weeks, we try to increase revenue by 20%. And that keeps you really honest, because if you can't do that, then you have to make a dramatic change. But it's also nice because you think that any change takes like 3 months to implement. then when you're forced to do it in 2 weeks, or actually have the revenue in 2 weeks, so you have basically a week to do it, you start taking all these kind of shortcuts, but they're very good shortcuts because you're trying out things very, very fast. And you'll learn quickly if it's not what you should have done. And if it is what you should have done, you can always most of the time you can fix the shortcut.
Are you paying over time, are you paying the price of the shortcuts by hiring more, like putting more engineers on fixing the tech debt, or working with clients to fix things, or it's
Really
a good
not.
problem to have?
Yeah, really not. You'd think that. So we don't take shortcuts with things like code quality.
Okay.
We do take shortcuts with the scope of a feature. So we just cut scope. We cut scope so much that it's sometimes embarrassing. Like we now have a Jaeger integration. Jaeger is some kind of a cool new tracing methodology. The integration is you can put in the URL and we'll link to Jaeger. And that's like, it's a trivial feature. But it was a bigger thing, but we only had time to ship this, so we shipped this. So that's our iteration value. And I think it has given us like superpowers. And for example, you think about a new pricing plan. Well, you can have a 3-month plan. You can also someone changes the pricing page and you just see how it converts. Now that's not statistical. You can also take out some ads and see what the click-through rate is with different pages. Or you can do some interviews of relevant people and say, look, what is it worth to you, instead of talking about pricing. It's just, we always had these like huge plans of 2 months, and when we had to cut them down in scope, they still gave us a lot of feedback and just way quicker.
So you define the scope based on how much time you have, and not based on what's the dream version or what's the next to dream version.
Exactly. It is, okay, we have to increase revenue again, 20% these next 2 weeks. What can possibly do that? And then you find some things that are like sound like a really good idea, but take 3 months, and you find some things that, I don't know, they sound like raising your prices. Like, okay, yeah, it's not beautiful, but it works.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, when you were doing those reiterations and kind of doing those 20% sprint, was there any specific ones that you felt worked really well for you guys? And maybe you guys have some that didn't work so well. Can you think of any specific examples of that?
Yeah, it's good. I'm racking my brain a bit. By the way, we never raise prices. We introduce new tiers, which works much better because then people don't have to. We raised prices one time, and then we started introducing new tiers. And there's a common reason. It is common to see like 3 pricing tiers. It's because it works really well. So I can recommend that.
So every new feature we go into. So let's say you have like tier 1, 2, and 3. 1 is cheaper than tier 3. Every new feature we go in tier 2 or tier 3, and hoping that more people from the tier 1 will jump to tier 2, and so on and so on and so on.
Exactly. And it's not exactly like that. We still have features for our lowest tier, but that's kind of what it is. You start.
But like when you try to augment revenue, a good way for you is to move people from the tier 1 to tier 2 and plus.
And look, our businesses are probably quite dissimilar. By the time we were in we got into Y Combinator, we already had 100,000 companies running GitLab. So we already had volume, just most of them were paying $0. So for us, it was how do we get them to a paid tier? For you, it might be very different. Like, how do I get people to use this at all? How can I make it so easy to run this? Just it should be a Docker container, my AWS key, and my thing, and then out should come a report that I can show my boss or something like that. And I should be able to do that in 5 minutes.
Interesting.
Got it. Just a few more questions. What are you guys currently doing? I think you guys done a really good job in growth. What are you guys currently doing trying to reach your targeted demographic of developers? Ebooks, content. what are you guys doing to reach your audience?
So first of all, developers are not really our audience, as in revenue generation. So our buyers are like managers, directors, and executives. Developers tend not to pay for the product. So to reach leaders or buyers, I should call them. I heard that ebooks work well. We also did something with ebooks. It's working pretty okay. And it's pretty like for you, like write the O'Reilly book about cost reduction, but it's a significant effort and it might not be something you have time for right now. Yeah, and you can also, of course, just put a PDF together yourself. Another thing is outbound. That's really hard to make work. And for us, it's still something we're still optimizing. There's a lot of inbound. There's a lot of people already using the product and reaching out to us. And we wouldn't be where we are today with just the sales force. So just having salespeople in defined geographies, they will create their own demand. They will go out and just try to find demand. Now, preferably, it's more efficient if you have marketing, like feeding them with leads. But for example, if we had great marketing and everything was self-serve, I think we'd sell 80% less. So in the end, it is enterprise sales, and you do need salespeople.
That makes sense.
Got it. Did you feel like your growth strategy kind of evolved a bit to stay in line with your product and vision? Like, how did that change a little bit from your early days to what it is today over the last 8 years?
So you mean revenue growth or user growth?
I would say a mixture of both revenue growth and user growth. You know, I'm sure you get a lot of people asking for features or asking for product, but how do you stay in line with that and balance that with what you feel like the product and vision should be?
Oh yeah.
And how has that changed from the beginning stage where you guys were hustling and building features to what it is today?
Yeah, in the beginning, we always said like, hey, the majority of the world isn't using GitLab yet, so we're going to optimize for everyone not using GitLab yet. And that meant really expanding the scope of the product, which is pretty controversial. But that's worked out really well because now that the scope is big, people see the advantage of a single application for the whole DevOps lifecycle. Then prioritization is getting harder. Like in the beginning, it was whatever features we thought were needed, and then you get your first customers and you focus on them. Like we had one customer where we just built everything they asked for, and it turned out to be a really good thing because everyone else later was asking for the same features. And now you got this mix, like stuff that needs to be refactored, new features that need to be extended, an extension of scope. We got lots of security fixes going on now with that come out of our bounty programs. You got lots of scalability issues that you need to solve. So it's a big mix now. And the most useful thing I can tell you, have a single person that weighs that all against each other. So for us, that's product managers. And there's no engineering also can do 30% of the time, can schedule their own 30% of the time, or security can make a decision. No, the product manager makes all decisions. And if you don't agree, you can always like talk to the product manager, and we have certain guidelines of how they should make that decision. But you don't want to be between 10 different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure that's pretty tough with a remote only force. You know, communication's key. I'm sure you guys run into a lot of tricky scenarios where an engineering or security person has some suggestions, and I think having that as a remote communication can be kind of tough if there's a disagreement about that.
Not really. They just let the person know and they have a call about it. I think when it was tough was when we had these meetings where we would decide what we would make, and there would be like 20 people in the meeting, all like trying to get their interests across. And by just saying, hey, it's not the meeting who decides, it's the person who decides. And this person is going to make a proposal, and if you don't agree, try to convince them, but in the end, this person decides, not the meeting. That really, really helped. So we always try to have a directly responsible individual, a DRI, for anything. And that greatly cuts down on the amount of overhead that decisions take.
You mentioned remote work a little bit, and we really admire what you've done over at GitLab, building the company remote first, having engineers and employees all over the world. We're kind of, like I said, we admire you, and we want to like model our company based after GitLab and other companies like yours. If you could just like maybe give a few less obvious tips about how to successfully run a small startup. So think back in your early days at GitLab. What are some like founding principles that you had that you stuck with and you probably still have today about remote work?
Oh yeah, there's a lot to say there. Best thing is to Google GitLab all remote. We're trying to write most of the things down there. But I do think like it was an important time for us to go to Y Combinator. We all lived in the same house with the whole company. So it sometimes is great to bring everyone together. Maybe not for 3 months. That was a pretty long stretch, but getting together for a week or two just to get to know each other a bit. I think that might be beneficial. And then yeah, remote, just write a lot of stuff down. Yeah. I think our handbook is handy. I think working issues is great. But also like if you go back and forth on Slack 2 times, just hop on a video call together. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're big fans of the handbook too. So we've definitely looked at that.
Thanks for all your kind words.
Yeah, no, we've definitely referenced it a few times, especially in the founding of this company. And we're lucky in that we all worked together at a previous company together. So we have that like initial bond together in the same room. Tony, do you have some more questions?
Yeah, just kind of to end off, any blogs or writers that you recommend that you personally enjoy reading and enjoy looking over whenever you get a free chance?
I think the blog of Ben Thompson is great. And if you're starting a SaaS business, I would also read Predictable Revenue.
Got it. And any final advice to SaaS companies in the dev tool market that you might have, maybe 2 or 3 departing advice that you feel that you've held on pretty closely while building GitLab?
I think VCs don't like to invest in the dev tool market because it's notoriously hard to make money. So if you make a dev tool, make sure it's that it's a broader thing. Because if it's just a single feature, if you're just selling CI, it's going to be super hard making money. So think about how you can become a broader thing. I think that would be my advice.
Got it. Cool. Thank you so much, Sid. That's all we have on our end, and we really appreciate the time and advice that you have. And it's really interesting to hear kind of GitLab and how you guys think about developer marketing and your growth strategy as well.
Cool. Well, thank you. And everyone, thanks for watching.